The Alpha King needed a mate to his brother's mating ceremony, who he brought shocked everyone. The northern kingdom of Varkalo was a land shaped by cold winds and old magic. Mountains guarded it like silent giants, and dark forests stretched endlessly beneath silver skies. Wolves were more than animals here. They were history, law, and spirit. Their presence lived in bloodlines, in crowns, and in ancient oaths whispered under the moon. At the center of it all stood King Alaric, the Alpha King. He ruled with strength and control, feared by enemies and respected by his people. His voice alone could quiet a council room. His gaze could make warriors lower their heads. Yet despite his power, the throne beside him remained empty. An Alpha King without a mate was considered incomplete. Whispers followed him through stone halls. Nobles spoke softly behind heavy doors. Elders exchanged worried looks. The old laws were clear. The ruler's bloodline had to stand whole during sacred ceremonies. And now, the most important ceremony in decades was approaching. The mating ceremony of Prince Kale, the king's younger brother. It was meant to be a joyful event, a bond that would strengthen alliances between packs and bring stability to the realm. Wolves from distant territories were already traveling toward Varkalo. Banners were raised. Fires were lit. Songs of union echoed through the city. But the closer the ceremony came, the heavier the weight on the Alpha King's shoulders grew. Because tradition demanded one thing he did not have: a mate. Late one evening, King Alaric stood alone on the highest balcony of the palace. Snow rested along the stone railings untouched. The moon hung low and full, watching him like a silent judge. He rested his hands on the cold stone, feeling the steady pulse of power within his chest, the alpha magic that had been passed down for generations. It was strong, untamed, dangerous, and cursed. Long ago, before he wore the crown, the elders had bound him with an ancient spell. They claimed it was for the good of the kingdom. His power was too wild, they said. If he bonded with a mate too early, the magic might tear the realm apart. So they forbade him. No mate, no bond. No choice, he obeyed as a king must. But obedience had a cost. A memory rose unbidden in his mind. A girl with dark eyes and steady hands. A girl who did not fear him when others did. A girl who once stood between him and death, bleeding in the snow while refusing to let go of his arm. He closed his eyes. She was gone now, exiled beyond the borders, erased from court records as if she had never existed, and he was the one who had sent her away. The next morning the council gathered in the great hall. Elders in silver robes lined the long table. Nobles sat stiffly, their expressions tight with concern. Prince Kale stood near the throne, calm but watchful. The eldest elder spoke first. "The ceremony is in 7 nights," he said. "The packs will arrive by tomorrow. The moon will be at its peak." King Alaric said nothing. "The Alpha King must attend with a mate," another elder added carefully. "It is not a request. It is law." Murmurs filled the hall. "We have prepared suitable candidates," a noblewoman said quickly. "Daughters of strong bloodlines, loyal families." Alaric's jaw tightened. "I will choose," he said at last. His voice was low, but it carried power. The room fell silent. The elders exchanged looks. "Time is short," the eldest elder warned. "If you arrive alone, the packs may see it as a sign of weakness." Alaric rose from his throne. "They will see what I allow them to see," he replied. He left the hall without another word. That night a single rider was sent beyond the northern forests, carrying the king's seal and an order that stunned even the palace guards. "Bring her back." Days later, as the kingdom prepared for celebration, an unexpected figure approached the palace gates. She arrived at dusk when the sky burned with deep red light. Her cloak was dark and travel-worn. Snow clung to the hem of her boots. She carried no banners, no escort, no sign of rank. Yet the guards felt it the moment she stepped onto the stone path. Something old stirred. She did not bow when asked her name. She only lifted her eyes toward the palace towers, her expression calm but guarded. "The king sent for me," she said. Her voice was steady. When word reached the court, disbelief spread like fire. Some recognized her face, most did not. But King Alaric knew. He stood in the throne room when she was brought before him. The court was full, nobles, elders, visiting wolves from distant lands. Music fell silent as she walked forward. She stopped several steps away from the throne. Their eyes met. Years had passed, but the bond of memory struck like lightning. She had changed, harder now, stronger, but her gaze was the same, clear, unafraid, searching. Alaric rose slowly. Gasps echoed through the hall as he descended the steps and stood beside her. "I will attend the ceremony with her," he announced. Shock froze the room. A human-born exile, a woman without a pack, a name long erased. Whispers turned sharp. Elders stood in alarm. Some nobles looked offended, others looked afraid. She said nothing. She did not cling to him. She did not smile. She simply stood at his side, shoulders straight, as if she belonged there. The moonlight through the tall windows shifted, casting their shadows across the floor. For a moment, those watching could have sworn the shadows moved on their own, drawing closer, merging. The eldest elder stepped forward, voice tense. "She cannot stand through a mating ceremony," he said. "The magic—" "I am aware," Alaric interrupted. His hand hovered near hers, not touching. "This is my decision." The court had no choice but to bow. That night the palace was restless. Wolves howled from the distant hills. Fires flickered without wind. Servants whispered of signs and omens. In a quiet chamber far from the celebration halls, the woman stood at a window staring out at the moonlit forest. Footsteps sounded behind her. "You came," Alaric said. "I was summoned," she replied simply. Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of unspoken truth. "I never meant for you to suffer," he said at last. She turned to face him. "And yet I did." Her words were calm, but they cut deeper than anger. Outside, the moon rose higher, and beneath the palace stones, ancient magic began to wake. Because the Alpha King had brought a woman who should not stand at his side. And fate had noticed. The morning after her arrival, the palace of Varkalo felt different. Sunlight fell on the stone walls, yet shadows lingered in corners as if the building itself were holding its breath. Servants moved quickly, whispering to one another about the woman the Alpha King had brought. Nobles peered from behind velvet curtains, their eyes sharp, their lips tight. Even the wind seemed cautious as it passed through the halls. King Alaric walked through the palace alone, his heavy boots echoing on the marble floors. He felt the weight of the crown pressing down more than usual, as if the ancient magic that flowed through him sensed the change. He had chosen her, the human-born woman no one expected, to stand at his side during his brother's mating ceremony. But choosing her was not simple. Every moment since she arrived had stirred something inside him, a mix of longing, guilt, and fear he could not name. She was in the inner garden when he found her, sitting beside a small fountain. Snowflakes still clung to her dark cloak, and her hair, black as midnight, fell around her shoulders. She was watching the water ripple under the rising sun. "You should not wander here alone," Alaric said, his voice low, carrying over the quiet of the garden. She did not look at him. "I am used to being alone," she replied softly. "It is not new." He came closer, pausing near the fountain's edge. "Not in the palace, not here. The council watches every move you make." Her eyes lifted to meet his, steady and clear. "Let them watch. They will see what they choose to see. I will not change who I am for them." Her defiance stirred a memory in him of a younger version of her, brave and unafraid, standing in the snow long ago. He remembered the fear he had felt then, the guilt that had followed him ever since. He had exiled her to protect her, or so he had told himself. But protection had not been protection. It had been abandonment. And now, seeing her here, he realized how much he had lost in those years. "You were never meant to be forgotten," he said quietly. "I should have trusted you, not sent you away. A shadow passed over her face, brief but sharp. "You did what you thought was right," she said, "but your choice hurt more than you know." He fell silent. He could not argue with that truth. The court, the elders, the rules, they had all demanded obedience. But none had demanded honesty. None had forced him to confront the cost of his own fear. Days passed, and preparations for Prince Kael's mating ceremony continued. Nobles argued over seating arrangements, the best foods to serve, and which visiting packs would receive priority in the procession. Meanwhile, Alaric and the woman moved through the palace carefully, aware of every eye that followed them. She did not fear him. That was both a relief and a source of tension. Most people trembled in his presence, but she met his gaze openly, without bowing or averting her eyes. At first, he felt pride in that. Then he realized it made his own restraint more difficult to maintain. Her mere presence challenged him, as if the magic she carried, though hidden, recognized him as something more than king, more than alpha. One evening, the palace's high towers were lit with torchlight. Snow fell in soft sheets, covering the stone pathways with white silence. Alaric found her in the library, leaning against a tall shelf of ancient scrolls. "You read too much," he said, though there was no accusation in his voice. "I read enough to know what is coming," she replied. "The ceremony is dangerous not for him but for us. You brought me here and the council will not forgive it. The magic it may react to our presence." He frowned. "I am aware of the risks, but I cannot undo my choice, not now, not ever." Her eyes softened briefly but then hardened again. "Then we must face it together." He nodded, a rare smile brushing his lips. That simple acknowledgment felt heavier than any crown he had ever worn. The night before the ceremony, the palace grew colder. Wolves howled in the distance, their cries carrying across the snowy plains. Servants whispered of omens, claiming the wind spoke of change. Nobles tried to hide their worry, but even they could feel it. The kingdom itself was holding its breath. Alaric stood at the balcony once more, the wind biting his face. She approached quietly, her boots leaving no sound on the stone floor. "You cannot walk alone," he said, though he knew she would. "I am not afraid of the wind or the cold," she said. "I am afraid of nothing but being left behind again." His chest tightened. She remembered all he had done, all he had failed to do, and yet she had come. She had faced him, faced the palace, and faced the prophecy that followed him. "Never again," he whispered. "I will not let that happen, not to you, not now." She studied him, reading the unspoken words in his eyes. "You speak as if you know me," she said softly. "But do you truly?" The question struck him harder than a blade. Did he know her? Could he, after so many years? The answer was buried beneath the weight of their shared history, beneath the regrets and the guilt that had shadowed every decision he had made. A sudden clatter broke the moment. Alaric tensed and moved toward the sound. Shadows flickered along the walls, but it was only a servant, dropping a tray of candles. Still, the sharp heartbeat of fear reminded him how fragile control could be. That night, the king summoned the woman to the council chamber. The elders were already gathered, their expressions grim. Prince Kael stood quietly at the side, his hands folded in front of him. "You are here," the eldest elder said, voice tight, "and the council must know what is your intention, Alpha King. You have chosen one who cannot stand in the ceremony by right of law or bloodline. This will bring scandal." Alaric's eyes did not leave hers. "I have chosen her," he said. "She will stand with me, not by law, not by bloodline, but because I will it. And because it is right." A murmur spread across the room. Nobles gasped, some whispered, others looked ready to protest. The woman did not flinch. She stood tall, shoulders squared, gaze fixed on him. "And if the magic rejects this?" the elder asked cautiously. "If the laws of the pacts themselves rise against it, then we will face it," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I am not afraid." Alaric looked at her with something approaching awe. She had faced exile, the cold, the danger, and she still refused to bow before the world's fear. And yet, her courage came with a warning. The magic that bound the Alpha King was awakening. Ancient forces were stirring, and no one could predict how they would respond to this defiance. The night passed in restless anticipation. Snow fell heavier, piling against the stone walls. Wolves in the forest answered the moon with long, mournful cries. Alaric could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the past. Her as a child, him as a boy, their shared history, the mistakes he had made. He had sent her away to protect her, yet that decision had caused her pain. And now, bringing her back had risks no law could measure. By dawn, tension in the palace had grown unbearable. The halls seemed smaller, the torches dimmer. Every whisper, every glance carried weight. Servants spoke quietly about the woman who walked beside the Alpha King. Nobles wondered how she had survived exile. Elders debated whether her presence would strengthen or destroy the kingdom. And in the shadows, magic pulsed like a living thing, waiting, watching, testing the bond between them. Alaric found her one last time before the ceremony. She was standing in the inner garden where the snow had begun to melt under the weak light of morning. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon. "The ceremony will begin soon," he said softly. "Are you ready?" She turned, calm but resolute. "I am ready," she said. "If the magic comes, we will face it together." He wanted to speak, to tell her everything, the guilt, the fear, the longing he had carried for years. But words failed him. Instead, he took her hand gently, a simple gesture, and she allowed it. For a moment, the world fell away. There were no rules, no counsel, no prophecy. There was only the weight of shared history and the fragile trust that had returned between them. As they walked toward the hall, the torches lining the path flickered higher, casting long shadows. Wolves howled in the distance, as if sensing the change. The courtiers and nobles fell silent as the Alpha King appeared with her at his side. The woman's presence was commanding yet calm, human yet unyielding, and every gaze in the hall turned toward them. The murmur of shock ran through the crowd. They had expected a noblewoman, a princess, someone of rank. Instead, the king had chosen a human-born exile, a woman erased from history. Her eyes met Alaric's for a single heartbeat, and in that moment the unspoken bond between them pulsed like a living thing. The council froze. The nobles whispered. Even Prince Kale looked uncertain. And beneath the stone floors, deep in the heart of Varkalo, magic stirred, curious and awake, sensing a connection it had never witnessed before. The woman's lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. She did not fear the power in the room. She did not fear him. She only stood at his side, a quiet defiance that promised the beginning of something no one in the kingdom could yet understand. And for the first time in decades, the Alpha King felt something shift within himself. Not just power, not just duty. Something older, deeper, and more dangerous. Something that might either save them all or destroy everything they held dear. The court would never forget the moment he appeared with her at his side. Not because of scandal, not because of law, not because of rank, but because the Alpha King had chosen a woman the kingdom never expected, a woman who might just be the key to breaking the curse that had haunted him for years. And somewhere deep beneath the castle, the magic began to whisper. It was awake now, and it was watching them both. The morning of Prince Kale's mating ceremony arrived like a quiet storm. Snow fell steadily over the kingdom of Varkalo, covering the marble streets and distant forests in a soft white blanket. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and frost. Wolves howled in the distance, their calls long and mournful, echoing the tension that gripped the palace. Inside the throne room, preparations were underway. Servants moved quickly, arranging long tables, golden goblets, and candles. Nobles in fine robes whispered among themselves, their eyes flicking constantly to the Alpha King and the woman who had returned from exile. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others in worry. They had expected a noblewoman, a princess of another pack, someone chosen for rank and safety. Instead, the Alpha King had brought her, a human-born exile whose presence challenged every tradition and law. Alaric walked through the hall, cloak trailing behind him. His eyes were steady, but inside, a storm raged. He had chosen her, yes, but he did not know if the kingdom or the magic that had bound him for so long would accept it. Every step he took was measured, aware of the watching eyes and waiting hearts. She followed him closely, silent but calm. Her eyes flicked to the windows, to the banners, to the crowd that would soon gather. She did not tremble, she did not falter, but Alaric could sense the weight of the fear and uncertainty she carried. She had survived exile, but the court and the coming ceremony were something different, something far more dangerous. "You are quiet," he said softly, leaning toward her as they walked. "I am listening," she replied, "to the walls, to the whispers, to the wind. The magic will notice soon, and when it does, we will need to stand together." He stopped, turning to face her. Her dark eyes held a strength that both comforted and terrified him. "Do you trust me?" he asked, his voice low. "Not just as a king, but as someone who has wronged you in the past." Her lips curved in a faint, serious smile. "I do not trust easily," she said, "but I trust you to make the right choice now. I see it in your eyes, the choice to protect, not to obey." Alaric's chest tightened. Those words were heavier than any command he had ever given, heavier than the crown itself. They walked together to the main hall, where Prince Cale awaited with his chosen mate. The younger prince looked regal, calm, and confident, the perfect image of tradition and obedience. He bowed slightly as Alaric approached, his expression polite but curious. "Brother," Cale said softly, "you honor me with your presence and your choice of companion." Alaric inclined his head. "I honor the tradition," he replied, "but tradition is not stronger than truth." The crowd murmured. Servants froze mid-step. The magic beneath the palace stirred, pulsing like a heartbeat. The eldest elder stepped forward, robes swaying with his movements. His eyes narrowed as he studied her. "This is impossible," he said. "The laws of our people, the laws of the wolves, forbid this union. She cannot stand here. She is not of the bloodline, not of the packs." She did not flinch. She stepped forward slightly, shoulders squared. "I am here," she said, "because he brought me, because the choice is his, and because I am ready to stand." Alaric's hand brushed hers briefly, a quiet gesture of reassurance. He did not speak, but the connection between them seemed to hum through the air. The magic beneath the castle responded, pulsing faster, stronger, as if curious, as if alive. The ceremony began. Prince Cale's bond ignited the sky first, small sparks of silver and blue swirling above him and his mate. The court gasped at the display, whispers of awe and respect filling the hall. The Alpha King's choice came next. He stepped forward, eyes fixed on the woman at his side. She held his gaze, calm, resolute, unwavering. The magic around them sensed the bond. It reacted immediately. The air grew thick, heavy with power. The candles flickered and the torches hissed as though alive. Shadows along the walls shifted unnaturally. The wolves outside howled louder, their cries echoing through the halls, through the stones, through the very heart of the palace. Alaric's hands clenched at his sides. The magic was stronger than he had anticipated. Ancient and wild, it circled them, testing, probing, demanding truth. "Step forward," the eldest elder commanded, though his voice trembled. "Speak your intention aloud. The bond must be declared or it will be rejected." Alaric nodded slowly. "I choose her," he said. "Not by law, not by birthright, but by my own will, by truth, and by love that has waited too long to be denied." The words hung in the air, heavy with power. The magic paused, as if listening, weighing, deciding. The woman stepped closer to him, her hand brushing his briefly. She spoke, voice clear and strong. "And I choose him, not for duty, not for law, but because this is right, because our bond will not break no matter what comes." The magic responded. It was not violent, it was not cruel. It pulsed around them, bright and warm and alive, as if approving their choice. Sparks of silver light traced the edges of the throne room, swirling around them like protective fire. The court gasped, some stepping back in fear, others in awe. The elders exchanged hurried whispers, astonished by what they saw. Prince Kael's mate looked on with admiration, recognizing the strength of the bond forming before her eyes. She bowed slightly, showing respect not just to the king, but to the courage it took to defy centuries of tradition. Alaric felt the magic within him stir, stronger than ever. It did not seek control. It did not demand obedience. It simply acknowledged what had already been true. The bond between him and the woman was more than law, more than prophecy, more than fear. It was real. Yet even as the magic pulsed, there was a warning, a subtle tremor in the stone floor, a quiet whisper in the shadows. The bond had awakened something old, something that had lain dormant beneath the kingdom for centuries, something powerful, mysterious, and unpredictable. The woman noticed it too. Her hand found his, not out of fear, but instinct. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. He nodded. "Yes, the magic, it is alive, watching us, testing us." They stood together side by side, feeling the hum of ancient power. Neither moved, neither spoke more. They did not need to. The energy around them carried their truth, their history, and the promise of what could come. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the far wall. The eldest elder gasped, pointing. "It moves," he cried. "The ancient magic, it stirs. It has never done this before." Alaric's jaw tightened. He had expected resistance from the council, perhaps from the packs, perhaps even from the old laws themselves. But he had not expected the magic beneath the kingdom to respond so directly. The woman's eyes narrowed. "It knows we are here together," she said. "It senses the bond. And it approves, but it is testing us. We must remain steady." He nodded. "Steady," he repeated, though his heart raced. "We will face it together." The room held its breath as the magic pulsed around them, sparks of silver and blue dancing like fireflies. Nobles whispered in awe, servants held their breath, and even the wolves outside quieted their howls, listening, waiting. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the sensation faded slightly. The air cleared. The magic was still present, still alive, but it no longer pressed against them. It had tested their bond, and it had not broken. The eldest elder stepped forward, visibly shaken. "It is accepted," he whispered. "The magic has accepted the bond. The Alpha King has chosen wisely and courageously." Alaric exhaled, tension leaving his body slowly. He looked at her, and she met his gaze with a faint, serious smile. The world around them remained cautious, wary, but for the first time he felt a rare sense of calm. The bond had held, the choice had been made, and for now the kingdom had survived. Yet the warning remained. Something older than law, older than kings, older than the pacts themselves had noticed the bond. And though it had not acted in anger, it was aware. And when something ancient awakens, it rarely sleeps peacefully. The ceremony continued, quieter now, almost reverent. The court watched the Alpha King and the woman walk together, their steps in sync, their hands brushing lightly, a silent acknowledgement of trust and shared history. Prince Kael's ceremony concluded with celebration, but all eyes kept drifting back to Alaric and his choice. That night, as the palace settled into quiet, Alaric found her in the garden once more. The snow had stopped, leaving the ground sparkling under the moon. Wolves howled softly in the distance. "You stood through it," he said quietly. "You could have faltered. You could have feared it, but you did not." She looked at him, calm but tired. "I do not falter for those who matter," she said. "And you matter, Alaric." His chest tightened at her words. For years he had carried guilt, fear, and power. Now he felt something else, hope. And perhaps, just perhaps, love that had been waiting in silence. But the magic beneath the palace stirred again. A whisper through stone and shadow, a pulse through the walls. Something old had seen the bond, and though it had tested them, it had not revealed its full intention. Alaric sensed it immediately. "The danger is not gone," he murmured. "It watches us, and it is not yet done." She reached out, hand finding his once more. "Then we will face it," she said, "together." And together they turned to look at the palace that had held them apart for so long, knowing that the trials had only begun. The bond was forged, the magic was awake, and the kingdom of Varkalo would never be the same. The morning sky over Varkalo was pale and still. Snow had fallen heavily during the night, covering the palace and forest in untouched white. Wolves in the distance howled softly, a low, haunting sound that drifted across the mountains. Inside the palace, tension hummed through the halls like electricity. Every step, every whisper, every shadow seemed alive. King Alaric stood at the balcony of the highest tower, gazing at the horizon. The woman, the human-born exile who had returned to stand by his side, approached silently. She was calm, as always, but he could see the weight of the past and present in her dark eyes. She had faced exile, cold, danger, and court whispers, and yet she stood here unyielding. "They will test us today," he said, voice low. "Not just the council, not just the packs. Something older, something beneath the castle," she nodded. "I feel it. The magic is awake, watching. It is alive, and it will not be satisfied with words alone." Alaric's hands clenched at the railing. For years he had carried the weight of his crown, the burden of ancient laws and the curse that had kept him from forming a bond. Now, at last, the bond existed, but it had awakened something far older than fear or law. "I will protect you," he whispered, "whatever comes." She stepped closer, letting her hand brush his lightly. "And I will stand with you, not as a subject, not as a follower, but as someone who chooses to be here, with you." The palace doors opened as the council gathered. Elders, nobles, and advisors entered the hall, their expressions serious. They had seen the bond form during the ceremony, had witnessed the magic acknowledge it. Yet even with the proof before them, fear lingered in their eyes. "The Alpha King has chosen to break tradition," the eldest elder said, voice trembling. "But tradition exists for a reason. The magic beneath this castle has noticed your bond. It will demand proof of strength, of truth. Are you prepared?" Alaric straightened. "We have no choice but to be prepared. The bond is real and it is true. If the magic seeks to test it, we will meet it together." The woman nodded, her dark eyes unwavering. "I am ready." A hush fell over the hall. Outside, the wolves quieted their howls as if sensing the moment. The magic beneath the castle stirred, invisible but palpable, coursing through stone and air. Suddenly, the floor beneath their feet trembled. Candles flickered, torches hissed. The shadows in the room lengthened unnaturally, stretching toward the walls and ceiling. The eldest elder raised his hands, unsure whether to intervene. Alaric stepped forward, placing a protective stance in front of her. "Stay close to me," he whispered. "No matter what comes, do not let go." Then it began. A deep vibration ran through the hall as if the castle itself were breathing. The magic had awoken fully, responding to the bond between the king and the woman. Sparks of silver light danced along the walls. Shadows moved independently, swirling like smoke around them. The temperature dropped and the air thickened with energy. The woman reached for his hand, and when their fingers touched, a pulse of power spread between them. The magic acknowledged their connection. It was alive, curious, testing their courage and their truth. "You are strong together," a voice echoed in their minds. Not words spoken aloud, but thoughts carried through the magic itself. "But strength is not enough. Trust must be absolute. Sacrifice must be proven." Alaric's heart pounded. "Sacrifice," he whispered. "What must we do?" The woman's eyes met his. "Whatever it asks, we face together. That is all we can do." The shadows intensified, forming shapes along the walls, twisted, dark forms of wolves, of kings, of ancient beings long gone. The court gasped, some stumbling back in fear, others frozen in awe. The shapes circled them, testing, searching, waiting for weakness. One of the shapes lunged forward, not violently, but as if trying to push them apart. Alaric braced himself, stepping in front of the woman. Their hands met again, and the bond pulsed like a heartbeat, brighter and warmer than the cold magic in the room. "You will not separate us," the woman whispered. "We are one." Alaric drew a deep breath, letting the truth of those words fill him. "We are one," he repeated, "in mind, in heart, in bond." The shadows paused as if listening. Then they receded slightly, testing again. Another force pressed against them, invisible yet strong, pushing at their resolve. The council trembled, the nobles whispered, but Alaric did not waver. He remembered the years of fear, the mistakes, the exile, the guilt. All of it had led to this moment. The bond was more than law, more than magic. It was trust, it was truth, and it was stronger than fear. The woman stepped forward, placing her hand on his chest. "You do not carry this alone," she said. "Your strength is mine, as mine is yours." The pulse of magic responded immediately, brighter, warmer. The shadows shivered, retreating further as if acknowledging that the bond was unbreakable. Then came the final test. A vision appeared in the hall, a memory, or perhaps a glimpse of the future. Alaric saw the moment he had exiled her all those years ago, saw the hurt in her eyes, the loneliness she had carried. He saw the court whispering, the nobles judging, the packs murmuring doubt, and he realized the magic demanded more than courage. It demanded truth, confession, and redemption. He turned to her, voice steady but soft. "I was wrong," he said. "I sent you away to protect you, but I only caused pain. I feared the power I carry, and I let that fear control me. I have carried that guilt for years. I will not hide it any longer." The woman looked at him, eyes dark but understanding. "It took courage to admit that," she said softly, "and it is enough. You cannot undo the past, but you can choose the future." Alaric reached for her hand again, their fingers locking firmly. "Then the future will be ours," he said, "together, no matter what comes." The shadows recoiled, the castle itself seeming to release a long-held breath. The magic pulsed once more, approving. The bond had passed the test. The truth had been spoken. The courage and love between them had been proven. The court gasped, some falling to their knees, others bowing, as the light of the magic swept through the hall. Wolves outside howled in unison, a chorus that echoed across the mountains. The elders whispered in awe, finally understanding that the Alpha King's choice had not broken tradition but transformed it. Prince Kale stepped forward, his expression calm. "Brother," he said, "you have chosen wisely. The bond between you and her is stronger than any law, stronger than any prophecy. The kingdom is fortunate to witness it." Alaric inclined his head slightly. "Thank you," he said, voice low, "but the credit belongs to her. She stood with me through fear, through magic, through the judgment of every pack. She has shown the strength and courage that no crown can measure." The woman's lips curved in a faint, serious smile. "We stood together," she said. "That is all that matters." For the first time in decades, the palace felt at peace. The magic that had haunted Alaric, the curse that had kept him from forming a bond, had accepted them. Wolves howled softly outside, celebrating the bond, the courage, and the future. The snow sparkled under the moonlight, silent witnesses to the power of truth, trust, and love. Later, in the quiet of the garden, Alaric and the woman walked side by side. Their hands brushed lightly, then intertwined. The air was crisp, the moon high above, and the shadows gentle around them. "You changed everything," he said softly, "not just for me, but for the kingdom. For the packs, for the magic itself." She looked up at him, dark eyes filled with quiet determination. "And you changed everything too," she replied. "You chose truth, you chose courage, you chose love over fear. That is what matters." Alaric felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The years of guilt, fear, and solitude melted into the snow around them. The kingdom, the magic, and even the wolves had witnessed their bond, acknowledged it, and accepted it. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The magic beneath the palace, though appeased, would always watch, always remember. And so would he, the responsibility of a king and the care for someone he loved deeply. He stopped walking, turning to her. "We have passed the test," he said, "but we must remain vigilant." The magic is alive. It will always test us in ways we cannot predict. She placed her hand on his chest, close to his heart. Then we face it together, she said. Always. Alaric nodded, feeling the warmth of her hand and the bond that had saved him, transformed him, and healed what had long been broken. The snow whispered beneath their feet, the wind carried the faint howl of wolves, and the palace, silent and ancient, seemed to smile upon them. They walked back toward the palace, not as king and subject, not as alpha and exile, but as equals bonded, strong, and united. The kingdom of Varkalo would never forget this day. The court would speak of it for generations. And the magic, old as the stones themselves, would carry the story of the Alpha King and the woman who chose to stand by his side. A bond stronger than fear, stronger than law, stronger than time itself. And beneath the snow, beneath the palace stones, the magic slept once more, quiet, content, and waiting, for the next chapter in a story that had only just begun.